Can you hear me?
Yep. You're
Okay.
having issues,
Okay.
mate.
So sorry. I had to restart everything. Like this first start asked me to sign in for Zoom and then restart it, and then the whole computer went off, and it's just not my day. So sorry, and I'm so glad you all patiently waited. Okay, so let's get on with this week. How did you all go? Anything like challenging, interesting? Didn't expect this. I know, right, Amy? It is it's you can't do without it, but then and having to deal with it can be also challenging, right? Yeah, I get that. Okay. So how did you find this week? Like, how do tell me honestly, was it challenging? Was it easy? I know sometimes it might feel easy. If it was too easy, then I would say you didn't do it right. You just got the easy way out. Because what happens with I'll share my screen so it looks nice. Um, here. Okay. Okay. So what happens is like you got to really take your time. You got to really reflect and review. And then it was interesting to see how some of you find it like, oh, it's easy to choose the 5, but it was so hard to keep it at 5. Like, because you really want to go this and that, isn't it? Then it will come down to 10. So how did you find it? Like, because I'm not taking your examples, but I am taking some examples to share how this is done. So to see there's a congruency in how you actually elicited your values. So this is like a whole values elicitation process. There's just different kinds, but I find this was quite helpful for me and my clients. And I just felt like, it is interesting. This is something that I do on a yearly basis because values doesn't mean it's like who you are, because there are values that I consider it as a given, right? For, like integrity or, when it comes to integrity and family, this kind of things, like, and I find it is a given. So it's not something that I have to live up to. It's not something that I have to keep in mind or work towards during the year. So it is something that's a given. This is who I am. So therefore, I don't need that as a value. But whereas there's some other values that I'll go like, okay, this year I'm just going to focus on this, and this is the value that I really want to adapt and really make sure that I live by that throughout the year. So, so there are some type of values. So I'm going to give you some examples of how it changed over the years and how some values that I actually thought they were my values were ended up becoming, they were my expectation. So this is where your relationships can actually affect as well, because you're setting this expectation on yourself, and then you walk around thinking that these are my values, but no, you're actually living with this list of expectations that you put on yourself, and therefore you would expect I have that as well. Because you see, just because you speak German doesn't mean I speak German. Yeah. So it's like that. So that's why sometimes there are times that you will be wondering, why is there a clash with this person? Like, why is it my child or my partner, like, who was so good, but all of a sudden, because there could be a torn apart values where in the name of value, you have set some expectation. So these are the things that I just want to clarify in this process. If you're going to redo it again, the ideal time to do this is like towards the end of the year and beginning of the next year. So I have my business values that I do in June, July, because end of financial year, beginning of a new financial year. And then I'll do my values for my personal life, end of the year, beginning of the new year. But then also I have a set of values that I want to adapt and work towards is for my research, like for my PhD. So that one I would do it like, after a milestone or after a year of, okay, like I have my own milestone, like the data collection and data analysis. So I just set like, what do I need to be able to do that smoothly? So these are other things that I wanted to share. So does anyone here find it challenging to find the values? Like, did you do the first step? So you just have to say good, hands up, or talk or do something. Talk to me, okay? So I can see Christy has unmuted her face. So I know that this is working because I can see her move. So I know that I'm not talking to, like just the screen. So I'm glad. But the others, if you want to unmute, or if you could, turn on your camera, that would be lovely too. But I understand if you're not in that position. And so what I'd like to do, it is the first thing. You elicited your values. That means you had a long list of things that you felt that relates with you. Second thing is to choose the top 5. And then the third thing is to put them in order to see the congruency of it all. Because sometimes when you're torn apart values, where you have a business value or your research, your hat, you're wearing a research hat and you have a set of values there. And then here you're trying to be this family, hero in the family. And then you feel there's a torn apart values like you cannot live up to. And that's where sometimes this kind of lack of understanding can actually lead to, how exhausted you feel by the end of the day or by the end of it all. Sometimes have you all been in situations where everything is going okay, you're ticking some goals, but you're so exhausted, you're not enjoying it. Like, you kind of lost your mojo. You're doing it for the sake of doing it because you have to do it rather than you want to do it. Have you been in that situation?
Oh, yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, I just
It's
need
probably
to,
the reason why I started a PhD
yeah.
after doing 14 years of survey. But the thing that I discovered was that
I don't think
what
people would, be a PhD for this.
it was another challenge to face. Um, what I found was that I selected open-mindedness, and then I realized that that included a heap of other values within that sort of bucket, as it were, because there is respect in there and sort of kindness, because once you're open-minded, it opens up all the other things because then you respect people because you're open-minded towards them, as it were.
Hmm,
So, as I said in my
yeah.
little spiel,
But
health
then
for me has
that's,
always been a high
uh,
value.
hmm, that's what I wanted to say about health and family. I will come to that. Okay, remind me if I didn't, because I started off thinking there are values, like personal values that I need to have, but it kind of worked against me rather than towards where I was wanting to go. And that's when I was just thinking, what mindset did I have to actually create that value? So I'm just going to talk about that. Okay, let's look at some examples so that you know what you could be doing with yours, right? See, there's some values like, that these are some of the values that I've had before, people sharing, where you have freedom, curiosity, honesty, health, and balance. Again, sometimes this can be quite vague, like, like an overall kind of value, but then what is it like specifically? Because your brain needs to send messages to your body, to the universe, to what you want it to happen. So sometimes when you put it in a bigger picture, it's all good. Checking out like, why is this important to you? How is this like, what's your highest intention of you wanting this value and so on? So it's also important. So sometimes, as I said, is this your value or is this the expectation that you're setting upon yourself? Therefore, you're also indirectly, unconsciously setting on others. That means I want to be honest, I want to have full integrity, then I expect everyone around me should have that too. So there's a kind of like an unconscious thinking that you're setting your values upon others. So that's again, that's where the incongruency can happen. And so for me, it is like, honesty, it's a given, and balance in what? Be specific, balance in what? So I say don't choose two values, but you can describe what you mean by balance. Yeah. These are the questions you need to be answering yourself. When it comes to freedom, right? This is because I'm also a master practitioner and a trainer in NLP, the neuro linguistic programming, right? So, and through that, and also through the behavioral study programs that I have done and worked on my clients, it is sometimes like what we language is what we experience. Do you agree? This is like, you language something, that's what you experience. That's why last week I kept saying, language what you want rather than what you don't want. So that's why now a lot of schools or, kindergarten or childcare centers, they're now practicing language where you don't tell the kids, instead of saying don't run, you tell them walk, right? So when you say don't run, the brain deletes the don't and it wants to run. That means I'm encouraging them to run, because I'm not going to listen to the don't, I'm going to listen to the word run. So what happens is, instead of saying that, you go like walk, start walking. So instead of saying no, tell them what you want them to do. Like, I remember when I was raising my little, like my boy when he was little, instead of saying, don't open the door, don't open the cabinets, don't do this, no, no, So I started telling him what I want him to do instead. And that worked a treat. So if he opens the fridge, I'll go like, can you help me to close it? Because it needs to be cold. So I'll give the why reasons, like why, the meaning or the reason, so that he understands why he's expected to do that. So that became a habit, throughout in my language with my kid. Is instead of saying what I don't want him to do, I'll tell him what I want him to do with the reason behind it so that he's convinced with that, right? So Karen is sharing, there are lots of values that I connect, but with limiting and prioritizing is hard because different parts of your mind conflict for importance. That's it. That is the same thought process that has been used for ages with training dogs. There you go. That's why dogs are easily trained than children. Don't you think so, Karen? Now they're finally transferring that. Do you watch the dogs behaving badly program? Most of the things that they're teaching the dogs, they should be teaching the children these days. So it is the same level of training, whether it's a puppy or a child. Woof, woof, yes. So I want you to understand sometimes choosing these values, whether it is actually flowing it. The humans get trained, but they don't apply it. That's the problem. We know it, but we don't apply it. So see, another one we look at is well-being, ambition, perseverance, collaboration, independence, and all that. So now you see, I have all these top 5. Let's say I have chosen this top 5. Yeah, I was actually talking about freedom. Yeah, about how your brain processes freedom. What does freedom means? There's like, I want to be able to do whatever I want. I want to be able to spend whatever I want. I want to travel wherever I want. That kind of like, this is like the desires, right? But what it also connotates is the responsibility that you want to avoid. I mean, if I can financially spend all the money I want the way I want, I have total financial freedom. So which means what you're doing is like, I don't want to be responsible. I just want to have the freedom to do what I want to do. So that connotation can actually now then contradict with how you want to be or who you need to be in order to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So one part of you is saying, I need to be responsible enough, I need to be disciplined, I need to have the level of honesty, I need to be balanced. And another part is just like, I want to run away, I want to spend money, I want to travel, I want to have this time for myself, that it is all good, but you got to language it in such a way that it is going to help you rather than contradict with what you want versus at what you think you want. So that's why I always say avoid these words like integrity, which should be a given. Family, again, family is important. We all know that. You don't have to live by that in 2025, 2026, so you don't need that as your value, right? So I'm talking about these values are interchangeable. These values are something that you reflect and you review on a yearly basis or 2 3 years basis. But when it comes to family, it's not like after 2 years, they're not important anymore, right? You're not going to have another really important value there that's you're going to kick out the family. So what does that mean? Like they're not important anymore. So you're going to take off your health. Does that mean it's not important anymore? No. So choose the words that helps you to move forward in the direction that you want to go, and leave those words that are given as values in so many programs where it actually contradicts to who you are being as it is, like, because this is who you are. My identity is I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a daughter-in-law, all these identities play, and that identity comes with this love and connections with my family and myself and the health and everything that comes within that. So what I mean by how it flows and whether it's congruent. So when I ask you to do a list, right? And in the top, in the prioritizing way, why? Because each value is driven by another one, right? For example, so in this case, like, you're talking about the person who gave balance as the driving value to health. Yeah, makes sense. Balance in life, balance, work-life balance. I'm assuming that's what they meant. So that is going to be now driving a better health. Yeah, so it is common. So the then seeking for balance that leads into having a good health. But then when it comes to being healthy and good and all of that, and then all of a sudden it's just like, why is it jumping to honesty? So then does health drive honesty? So if you're not healthy, does that mean you're not going to be honest? Again, benefit of the doubt, it could be the health is driving their honesty to face what they're facing. Let's say they have some illness, they have to be honest about it. They need to make sure that others know about it, or they make sure that they go to the doctor and tell the truth, what's happening, so that level of kind of a health-related honesty, yeah, that could flow. And then comes to curiosity. So does honesty drive the curiosity? So what's happening with my health? How can I improve it? What can I do to get better? Who can I seek for help? The curiosity in finding out what my health issue is, Again, yeah, you can say that flows. And then it finally sits on the ultimate top value as freedom. See, this is where it just disconnects. So you're going past, and then all of a sudden you're sitting freedom. Freedom then comes down to, I just want to do what I want to do. I want to eat what I want to eat. I want to travel where I want to go. But does that mean it's balanced? Does that mean you're looking after yourself? Does that mean you're being honest to yourself and the others? So this is where sometimes it contradicts. Does that make sense? Peter is saying, I can refuse what I do not want to do. Yeah, you can. You have a absolute power to do what you want and what you don't want. But then you refusing negative word, and then you refusing what you don't want to do. How can you language that in a positive way? See, that's the language. That's how you need to learn to language. Language what? So instead of saying I can refuse, it is like I can accept what I want to do, or should you say, I refuse what I know? See, there's a double negative in that language in itself. See, this is what I want you guys to understand. Emotional intelligence also becoming more aware of speak. What are you languaging? What are your thought process? What is that understanding behind that thought process? This is all important. Yeah. So does that make sense? Yes. Okay. And let's look at, work related or see life related, right? So there are people who are saying continuous learning, love continuous learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I just can't stop. I can select positive actions. Yes, Karen. So continuous learning that leads to personal growth. Yeah, because when you are open to learning, that means you are opened up to growing. So that's why I love the fact that you learn, you grow, and then you share, and then you create the ripple effect. So then people around you, and like a lot of the things that I realized that I have directly influenced my son, but I have also indirectly influenced my son because of how I have been, that I can see like, oh, he's doing exactly what I would be doing. Like, oh, he's thinking alike. Oh, he's just, I've created a good man now, kind of thing. And sometimes he catches me like, Mom, remember you used to say this, kind of thing. That's because it's like the growth mentality, like, and so I always say, never say, life is a problem. There's so many issues in life. There's so many problems. So I call it challenge. And sometimes if the challenge is just full on, but it is also helping me to grow, I call it high quality challenge. Because it's giving this challenge. Once I come over on the other side, I have grown so much. Like now I'm doing this statistical analysis, like I've got zero knowledge on, and I'm learning everything from scratch. And it is so challenging. It is just mind-boggling. But I see that as a challenge Because when I come out of the other side, I'm going to be like, oh, I know SPSS and I know this, I know that, and all of that. That a year ago, if you asked me, and it's just like, what language is it? Kind of thing. So that is where the challenge motivates me to move forward. So this personal growth also helps my well-being. And then it helps my well-being means my family is looked after. So this is some people have languaged the life. So when it comes to research, again, I don't agree with the family being in your value. This is personal, right? Because this is personal. I'm sure that a lot of people who do. And then you have the research thing, innovation. You are doing something innovative anyway. What you're researching on is going to be novel, and nobody has done that. You're finding the research gap. You're looking for excellence. You're looking for integrity. Again, yes, we do have to follow that academic integrity. So because it's a specific academic integrity, you could allow the integrity word here, but I would actually language it as academic integrity. That then drives that impact of my research that I'm going to create, and how this impact is going to allow me to collaborate with other people who are going to eventually hire me, or take me on board or work with me. So then the collaboration. So see, this kind of, when you're looking at it from a research perspective, this, if you now clash with your mindset when it comes to your personal life, this is where you're torn apart. Like, oh, I should be working on my excellence. I should be working on the research impact, but I'm here spending time with my family because that's another set of value. And this is another set. So a lot of people think that values means this is who I am. I need to create this set of values that I have to live by. But then what I realized over the years, it is like I can see the incongruency or the fact that they kind of like torn apart where they cannot live by it, and then they're so exhausted. And I realized actually it's true, because whatever I feel that is so important to me of top value when it comes to my research, it's nothing to do with my personal life. That is my career, that is my desire, whatever it is. But personally, I'm having that continuous learning. So personally, that's what it impacts my personal life, but not the collaboration, not the research in integrity, or all of that. It's got nothing to do with my personal life. It is to do with another hat that I'm wearing. So that's when I realized, when I keep it separate, I find it was very useful. For example, this may not, like, it is like, let's say you have your research and then you have family, right? So both combined together, too important. What then happens, like how many times I've heard people saying that, I should be spending time with my little kids and I'm not, and I feel so guilty that I'm not giving enough time for my family because I have to get this thing done. I have to do my data collection. I have a supervisor's meeting. I feel so miserable, right? So they feel so miserable because they're concentrating on another green hat while they're worried that their purple hat is not being taken care of. Then what they then do, go like, I'm taking a break this weekend. I'm not look at my research. I'm just going to spend time with my family. I'm going out for a drive with them. Then while they're sitting there, at the back of their head, I have to email my supervisor. I haven't got that one done. I don't know whether I can get it done in time. Do I need an extension? And then they feel guilty that instead of writing their chapter, they're sitting here doing nothing with family. You see that contradiction, the incongruency, because they're putting two different hats at the same time, and they're enjoying time doing research, nor they're enjoying time with family. Make sense? See, that's why a lot of researchers end up not spending time with friends or family as much, because they feel the sense of guilt always running at the back of their head because they have to tick their goals, or the other way around. Can you guys relate with this, or any other examples you want to provide?
Sorted, because I've got no friends here in Perth.
Anything?
I've got no friends here in Perth. All my family's in the UK, so I live by myself, so I can focus on my research.
Mhm. Nice. Yeah. I think that's why I feel like international students get a lot of their goals ticked better and faster and in time than domestic PhD people. Because, when we are sitting here, we have to go home and we have to cook. We have to we deal with a sick child or a sick husband, partner, and all of that. Where international students will be sending messages and calling over the phone and, yeah, I miss you guys, but I got more research to do. So, and it does make a huge difference. Domestic duties, indeed, Karen. So I'm glad that you guys can relate. So what about you, Peter and Amy? Like, are you listening? Are you um finding in anything that just hits on your head like, oh, that's me or that's not me? So when it comes to, again, work related ones, let's see whether this one has got the flow. Like, that I need to be efficient, and then being efficient, I need also that should drive my flexibility, because behavioral flexibility is important. Like, for example, when the technical stuff doesn't work or when the computer just pulls you down, and, so what other things then you can do? How flexible can you be? And then taking initiative, like, how is that going to improve your career, or how you as a worker there? And teamwork, and how, when it comes to dealing with teamwork, it leads into you exercising your leadership skills. I also have that work stuff: research, data collection, literature. Top tip: get a robot vacuum. Nice one. I don't know how it works, when you have too many things. I don't know how that, the thing maneuver itself, but I will have to consider that day. So, but then again, I'm one of those, right? All my household chores are my therapy sessions. They are my meditating sessions. If I'm cleaning up, I'm just totally in that mode. Put some songs, and I like, even if anyone call out, I can't even hear it because I'm really engrossed in that. And the same thing with cooking, or watering the gardens. I don't like to go near the gardens. I don't like to touch the soil, but I do water the plants. And that, that's just listening to the sound of it and things like that. It just, so that is my therapy session sometimes. There was one on the coast that went out on the road and got hit by the car. What was that? Oh, you mean robot vacuum? It's interesting. There you go, Christy. I've never heard of that one. That's a good one. Okay, so another version is this, like, here, people have mentioned, like, empathy, listening. So these are the values that you can say this year, for the next 6 months or the next 12 months. I want to be more empathetic. I want to be able to listen, and I want to have some gratitude in life, so how it just goes in. And then I don't know why the kindness that just landed in trust. Trust in what? Trust in yourself, trust in others. So when you start putting that as your value, it is then expecting something from others. So don't externalize your values. Internalize where you have everything within your control to be able to do that. It is how certain things in life we have total control. And one of the thing is how we choose to act or react. That's two things, yeah. So how we choose to act and how we choose to react in any given circumstances is the power that we have ourselves. So I can choose to be angry rather than somebody making me angry. Does that make sense? Just dwell on that. Sometimes we think that an external factor, an external being is actually making you angry. Someone has just tapped into your hot button. And so it is like, again, you're externalizing how you are feeling, blaming it on someone else who has caused it. But then someone else can do something that will make me angry. But then do I want to choose to stay angry? Do I want to be angry? Is there something, another way I could act or react? So that's one thing, right? So this is where it's, again, what is it that is within your control that you can influence 100%? I can't control the weather. I can't control what others are going to feel. I can't control other people's reactions or actions or emotions, but I can control how I act. So can you make a value to be more self-serving? My life is generally revolved around other people, so I need to learn other things. No, you can, because this is like, for me, gratitude, it is like, how I feel. Like, because sometimes when you externalize everything, right? If you start taking care of your family in the name of them being happy is going to make you happy, you're externalizing happiness. Happiness is something that you create, and then that flows out for others, right? But if you then now say, if my children are happy, I'm happy. If my partner are happy, I'm happy. When my parents are happy, I'm happy. Then what you're doing is you're giving the responsibility to others to make you become happy. So what you're then doing, you are not controlling who you're being. You're now trying to control all these other factors that is beyond your control, and then taking the responsibility for it, and then feeling extremely exhausted or drained because you are living others' life. So all in the name of love, and all in the name of protection, and all in the name of like, I need to be there. It is all these things, we are brought up. Some of us are programmed in that way, right? But then how can you change it? Because you see, 40 years ago, like my parents wouldn't have learned about any of this language or value elicitation, did they? We never watched social media or TV years ago. But look at the exposure that we have. A lot of my clients and all my friends, and sometimes they blame their parents who have like, oh, it's because of my parents. Like recently, one of my sister-in-law was blaming her older sister for the letdown of her children turning up the way they have, and I'm going like, okay, your older sister decided to help you out with parenting, but then who stopped you from being the parent anyway? And so then what you do is it's like you're constantly blaming others for anything that is not going according. And then when you are constantly expecting from others so that you can be happy, and then you're constantly feeling low because of their external drive. I have faced a lot of tragic things in my life. And no matter what, I took responsibility. I just decided this is how I'm going to choose to act or react. And therefore, I have total control of who I am and hold on to my identity. No matter how many hats you wear, your identity is, I am, like, my identity is like I'm Santa. I could have different titles. I could be Miss, Mrs., Doctor, whatever. I'm Santa. I could have diseases. You know how some people will walk around, like one of my friends, she was saying like, oh, I'm diabetic. Like, oh, I thought you were Sally. I didn't know you were diabetic, kind of thing. Like, why are you making all these diseases become your identity? Draw down to your raw identity, and then help build all these different values that is going to make you become better. And all this learning that you are spending time now, like you could be sitting and doing a chapter now, you could be doing data collection, you could be writing a confirmation document, but no, you're investing your time to do this module. You're investing your time to now sit here. Like, how many people have enrolled and only this many people turn up? Because you're investing on level of thinking, right? So this is where it is important for you to see these are all in your control. Everyone is given 24 hours in a day. Does anyone have 25? Does anyone have 20 hours? Everyone has got. But what is it that there's someone who can achieve this many things and then you tell yourself, I don't have enough time, is because my family takes up this thing or my this one, and my work. So then you are blaming all the external factors that is without your control. But what are the factors that is within your control so that you can have maximum hours in your day? So now I do work part-time, and so I could be going to work. So I realized that it was just taking an extra 2.5 hours and on commuting, getting ready and dressing up and all of that. So I thought if I could stay at home and work from home, I could save that 2.5 hours. I could use it to do my work, or I could just sleep or take a nap or do whatever I want to do. That doesn't. So that was within my control. So at first I was like, oh, I'm not sure whether I could do that. I'm not sure whether they'll let me do that, kind of thing. And then I had this conversation with my supervisor, and they said like, yeah, sure. You just come when you need to. And then other times you don't, if you don't need to be here in the office, don't. Just stay at home and do it. So it is like that is within my control, right? I made it happen. So now I have an extra 2 hours, 3 hours in my hand. So the gift of time. So what is it? That's why Seven Habits sold so many, yeah, copies. Yes, indeed. It is still selling. I think he came up with a lot more versions, right? Is that the Steve Covey one you're talking about, Christy?
That came
I think
about
he
30
has the
years.
family version.
It's
He,
about 30 years old now, isn't it? And that was one of the first sort of
yeah, yeah.
self-awareness books that people started buying. Everybody was saying, get this. And then that was like, it's when the gates opened, everybody became more, well, I wouldn't say jumped on the bandwagon, but suddenly everybody was
Mm,
becoming more aware. Like the parents we had before,
yeah.
they didn't, maybe my dad did,
Mm.
but certainly it was something that was happening in that era.
Same. How many times we have gone against what our parents would want us to do is because they had a different set of values and your values change. And the same thing, you will have a different set of values and your children will change. And listen to the songs, 30 years ago and listen to the songs now. It's totally different, kind of
Yeah,
thing. And the
they're the
exposure
same
is so
songs.
much.
They're the same
Now
songs, just
we are
rehashed.
rehashed, huge, yeah. But then there's a lot of meaning that gets lost along the way too. So I feel that when we read up all of this and we become aware, and the more we become aware, it's not just the awareness. Yeah, yeah, I know, I know, I know. No, it's not that. It's not about knowing. It's about implementing it. It's about acquiring it by implementing it. How are you applying what you know? How many people who have read that book are actually applying it in their day-to-day life? There's another book also called Atomic Habits that also became really famous. And but then I go, so how many people actually, yeah, yeah, we buy these books. How many books you have in your library that you hardly even read? And I'm guilty of it myself. But I have a list of things that I, like post PhD. It's not about working or anything. It's about all these things that I have to catch up on reading books instead of the articles. So these are things that how congruent you are and whether there's a flow. And if you suddenly just add something just for the sake of like, okay, I want A, B, C, D, and then I want Z. It doesn't work like that. So that's why, and then you review that at the end of the year and you go like, what did I do? No, nothing. It just didn't work. So that's what you got to understand. Another part that I was telling you earlier that is important, it is like, we've talked about this before, your fear of pain and your desire for pleasure. Sometimes we set a value that we do it because of the fear of pain rather than the desire for pleasure. And this can actually hit you. It is like you're stepping in your own, like you're shooting your own foot or something like that. Personally, it has happened to me. There was one particular year, I actually put family as my top value, right? Top, right on the top. And I just went, if there's any need, because my family, like, my mom used to be in Singapore, but my siblings are all over the place. But my in-laws they're all in Singapore. There's one particular year, I just put family is right on the top. This is before I did my research, like my understanding around different hats. So I just find that if there's any need, I will drop and be there for my family because they are so important to me. I will just drop everything. I want to be able to have this business where I can work from anywhere so that I can do it. Because time is in my own hands, my life is in my own conditions. Therefore, I can run this business anywhere. So I can coach my client from sitting in Singapore, I could do from anywhere, right? So this is what I kind of language it. My purpose is like to be there for my family in need, and then and be able to run my business that will allow me to take care of my family. You know what happened that year? My mother ended up with a terrible car accident and she was hospitalized for 3 months. And I had to drop everything, including my own little family, and be there for her. And where was I running my sessions? Not at sitting in a hall, not sitting in my home. No, I was running my session sitting in the waiting room of an operating theater because my mom had 7 surgeries following that accident. So I was spending like, literally 20 hours a day. I would go home just to take a shower and have something. And so I was spending 20 hours a day in the hospital. I was practically living there, right? So I felt like my desire to be there for my family also was driven by the fear of not being there for them. So I attracted something is going to happen, and I'm going to be able to live through this value that of mine where I will drop something and I will go. So I have indirectly envisioned that something is going to go wrong. Make sense? And then months later, same thing. My mother-in-law was on a life support. I was like in the middle of a swimming competition with my son, and I drop everything, like sitting there, not watching him swim, but booking tickets here to fly off. See that suddenly it's just like, and I felt like that whole year was miserable. It was just me being there for family. It was my sister that I had to go to Adelaide for, and then I had to go to Singapore twice. And then my husband was really sick, and he needed an operation. Like, what is this? Why did I even put that as my value? So by the end of the day, yes, I've ticked the value, I lived by it, but I attracted the wrong reasons that set that as my value. Am I making sense? It was literally, then I just told myself, my family is important. I get that, Santa. I don't need it as my top value to live by it, to prove myself, and to run around with fear of not being there. So I decided, no, family is not going to be there. Then the following year, I decided to put health. Like, oh, Santa, you got to focus on your health, not on others, right? So this time I thought it's all about me, nothing about other people's health or anything. Me, health, important. So I need to focus on my health. I need to make sure that I live accordingly and I do the right thing. I ended up with an ACL tear. So, and that went so seriously wrong. I had blood clot. I had, like, you name it, right? The recovery wasn't just like an ACL tear for a sports person. It was, for me, it was miserable. The physio couldn't do what they needed to do. The operation, they nearly lost me. So instead of something that should have taken me like 3 hours, I was there for 6 hours, ended up in ICU, and it was just everything that could go wrong. And then that moved on to fibroid. Then I had and my doctor didn't diagnose properly, so I ended up in emergency. The number of my trip to hospital that year was miserable. So not saying that I'm hell, like everything else turned out, but it really got me into thinking, why did I want to be focused on health? So that I will not inherit the family history of health issues, right? And so again, a negative thing, I didn't want to inherit that. I didn't want to be the sick person. I didn't want to die early like my father did. I didn't want to have this that my cousin is having. So a lot of pain factor. See, what I was focusing on, my health was driven by a lot of pain factor, whatever I didn't want. So, and so that's when I realized this kind of thinking that goes behind in my head is sometimes the unconscious thinking. See, the conscious awareness of a human mind is about 3 to 5% or 4 to 7%. The rest is unconscious thinking. What I mean by unconscious is, when you wake up in the morning, you don't consciously need to go to the toilet. I need to take my brush. I need to brush my teeth. We don't think. We do it, right? It's all unconsciously programmed in our head. We don't need a list of things to check because they're unconscious. You sit in the car, you do the step, 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 and you start driving because everything is programmed in that unconscious mind, and that needs to be. So that's why the conscious awareness is where it's reprogramming some aspect of life that needs reprogramming. So a normal person will have like a 3 to 5% of conscious awareness and then unconscious. But people who are so much into this kind of, thinking, thought process, meditation, and this and that, who are able to shift that unconscious into conscious, so they go up to like 7%. But this is how the human brain works, right? But the reason is some things in life we do it auto, like an autopilot. because it has been programmed from a very young age. But then what served you at a very young age may not lead all the way as an adult. Sometimes you might have to shift. So this is where you become aware of behavioral flexibility, how you listen in a positive way, how you can actually language it in a positive way. What did I just say? I'll give you one example, another example, right? How people interpret, even if you say it in the right way. For example, my son, when he was 8, the school was saying they're selecting people. They have 50 spots for the orchestra, the string orchestra, but they have 148 children who have put their hands up, become part of it. So they sent us a letter saying, can you talk to your children and ask them what other instruments they would like to play if they don't get into the string orchestra? So that means, like, plan A doesn't work, plan B. So if you don't get to the string, what other instruments you'd like to play? Can you please check with your children and let us know? So I had this normal conversation with my 8-year-old then, and I asked him, I said, Shaveen, if you can't get into violin, what's your second instrument? But the second instrument, like strings, something else, like, do you want to play drums or triangle, like some other instrument, right? You know what, how he suddenly, he just went quiet. I go like, Shaveen, I gotta know what's the other instrument to play. And then he turned around, he said, don't you have any confidence in me? I say, what? Then he's like, so what makes you think that I will not get into the strings orchestra? I say, no, it's just that there are so many people, like 150 people versus 50 spots. So they want to know what's your plan, what's your second choice? Then she said, why do I need a second choice when I know that I will get my first choice? So either you don't trust me that I don't get it, or you don't have confidence that I'm capable of getting. This 8-year-old, like, look at my intention is to get plan A, plan B, submit it back to school. But the 8-year-old is interpret that I don't have trust in him. I don't have confidence in him. See the language that get interpreted differently. Does that make sense, guys? So this is where I became aware of what I'm saying, why I'm saying, how I'm saying, not to even a child, but to anyone. Because human beings are like meaning-making machines. So we share some meaning, like saying some words that with this set of meaning, but it can be understood in different ways. So you need to understand. So that's why I said self-understanding it's another important component of being emotionally intelligent. So that's how you taught him to achieve. Yeah, I know, right? He's a bigger achiever than me now. So my dog got diagnosed with IBDD last year, and I took off 3 months to look after her. Not the same extent as your experience, but similar. Yeah, I can understand that, Amy, because it doesn't matter whether it's human or whether you're pets. I completely understand. But that's the thing. When you focus on something in thinking that you're doing it positively, but look at the interpretation. A child is having a positive act, he reacted in a negative way. So then when he was applying for university, I said, hey, are you going to just put just one option that you want to get to that university and that's it? Kind of thing. So I was making a joke out of it, like, saying, there you go. If you don't get that, you have plan B, plan C. So they give you 6 choices, don't they? Don't, so and then he said, it is the system not having confidence that I will make it. But you, as my mom, should know that I will get into strings, and he still remember the conversation. So it is like, so that's so interesting how people interpret. So if this is how the external factors are interpreting your language, can you imagine your unconscious mind could be interpreting it differently too? Yeah. So values elicitation is a process where you need to drive yourself, where I want to get pleasure out of getting my hat, wearing this hat. I want to get these things done. And I want to move forward with that. It's going to enable me to become a better self. And you must make sure that the values that you're choosing is something that you have total control. It is not driven by others. Like that means for you to be healthy, I need to make, because it's my family who needs to help me with that. You can't do that. It is you. You have the total responsibility for. You are accountable for yourself. Okay. And you're doing it for the desire for pleasure. So not always thinking that if I don't do it, I'm going to die soon. Or if I don't do it, then I'm going to miss out on this. So again, then you're driving yourself with a fear. So a lot of people, who suffers from fear, there's some universal fear in the world of emotional intelligence, or the self growth. It is the fear of not being loved, fear of not belonging, fear of failure, fear of success. There are people who afraid of that as well. And then, so these are the common fears, like not being loved, or the fear of being judged. How many times that we sit in a common place, in a conference or anywhere, where you have this question that you want to ask, you want to put your hands up and then just, ask this question, but then you're just afraid of being judged. What if it is a silly question? What if it was stupid? What if they think like, say think about me some way or judge me? So the fear of being judged also is a very strong fear people are driven by. And so fear of failure, fear of success, fear of not being loved, fear of belonging, and fear of being judged. So there's multiple others, but these are the common ones that I have noticed where people inhibit themselves, pull themselves back from growing. And then when you look back years later, it's just like, why didn't I do that? Because I was afraid I would fail. Why didn't I do that? Well, I was afraid I didn't know how to even handle the success. And, so there are people like that. So that fear can lead to, anxiety, stress, depression. It's just so many factors that engulfs them. That's why sometimes I feel, why do people go on certain medication and everything, where if you just talk to yourself and understand where this is coming from, if you learn the root cause and then start taking, root cause could be your upbringing. It could be like when you're a 5-year-old. But is there something, are you a 5-year-old now? That's the difference that you want to hear. That's the difference that you want to grow out of and grow up. Make sense? And what else? Yeah, changes in context. Yes. So the context is important. It is also important to us when we are languaging it, right? So that's why, my mother-in-law always complains when it rains or when it's too hot. And I'm going like, when it's hot, then I can have, I can wash my clothes and it dries faster. When it rains, it waters my garden. So everything I can see it in a positive point of view. And look at your blood pressure or even your heartbeat, everything will be normal because you're not agitated by things that are beyond your control. So any questions, guys? I realize this is not a live Q&A. I have to change the name now. It is more like Santa's lecture time or something, or extra
Right.
tips, because no ask me any questions. Anything? So next week we're going to be talking about self-resilience, another aspect of emotional intelligence. No questions. This has been awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. I hope you guys are benefiting. I know I don't get the big numbers, but but they do get the recording. I think that's another thing why people don't attend, because no one is asking questions, right? So they're not using this platform as asking questions and getting answers. They're just waiting to hear my lecture notes. And so, yeah. So let me know, even if you have questions that you don't want it to be, you don't want to ask in this platform, feel free to send it to me. I can address it personally directly back to you, or I can address it here so everyone can learn from it as well. So remember, when you ask quality questions, you get answers and everyone can learn from it. But if there is something that's personal and you want to ask for personal reasons, I completely understand that, and I can email you back or give you a call. So this is important that you understand how this every week, I have done this module in such a way that you're just moving from one to another, so that it will all fall into place at the end of it all. So I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it so far, and I love my regulars here. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. And let me know if there's any questions, anything that you need. And I think this week I didn't respond to I have read it, but I haven't really responded to your discussion notes. But it was really interesting to see how people have come up with the values and found it challenging to get the top 5. So thank you again for being and participating and turning up for these sessions. And I really look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say that. And the key takeaway here is not be influenced by the outside messaging. That's the big thing. You have your own internal messaging to yourself and how you respond to everybody, which is one of the key things that I
Yeah.
go by.
And take control of what you can act and react and control, like rather than relying on the external factors.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Choose to create happiness. Yeah.
Just keep smiling because it gives the shits to everybody else.
Silent punishment. Right. All right. So thank you.
Thanks,
And
Santa.
I look forward to
Cheers.
your feedback so that I create more in the future. So thank you. It's funny how things like this course come along at the right time. It is, isn't it? Have a great weekend, everyone. So Amy is wishing great weekend for everyone. It is true, because it's like, something knocks on your door when you really need it. And this is where, you sometimes, I don't know, religiously, people will pray. And then when someone turns up with the answer and they think like, I'm waiting for the God to tell me, no, the God is not going to personally come and tell you. The God is sending you this person so they hear it from them, so that's something that I believe, when you put it out to the universe, and then at the right time, you're hearing things that is actually coming to you for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. Is how you choose to act or react to it. It's all in your control.
Totally.
Yes.
Thank you.
All
And
right.
ciao.
Enjoy. Have a great week. I'll see you all next Friday with
Thank you.
self-resilience. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.